Hey, good morning, everybody. Glad to be back with you this first Saturday in December. My name is Ed Samuel. I'm a career coach with a firm called Sam Nova. We're based in Kennett Square, PA, and serve clients in the greater Philadelphia area and across the U.S. I hope and pray that you and your family are safe in the midst of this pandemic. So much is happening across the board. I see signs about industries, still hurting, and even some taking drastic actions. Disney, as an example, they're going to be laying off 32,000 people shortly. I think this morning, Southwest just announced, airlines just announced they're going to be furloughing quite a few people. So, this pandemic is still impacting many industries. And some of those industries are now just taking action because they thought that maybe they'd be out of this, and they're very much still in it, and a lot of people are going to be impacted. Now, on the flip side, there are other industries that are hiring. I mean, one of the reasons, I think, end of October, we're down at 6.9% unemployment. Not that that's a great number. It's just that we dropped down to that is because there are industries that are continue to hire. Financial services, the chemical industry, technology, distribution, transportation, mortgage companies, and certainly many of the areas in healthcare. They continue to hire. So, not all's lost here. And that, and I'm thinking about, in spite of COVID-19, we've helped my firm alone, we've helped dozens of people land jobs right in the midst of COVID-19. Many have made career pivots. And many of the talks that I've been giving of late, I speak of this area of flexibility. So just generally speaking, the more flexible you are and keeping open to that flexibility, that bodes well in this environment. And I also see and hear many positive job postings that will occur in the January timeframe. And that's net of anything crazy that's going to happen with COVID-19 in terms of a surge and going into a lockdown mode again. If that doesn't happen, I'm hearing some good things about job opportunities in come January, February, and many industries and firms. So again, it's tough. I'm a big fan of people tapping into the hidden job market as much as you can. The public one, or those are the ones that are posted on the internet. That's very, very competitive. So again, just a little bit of an insight in terms of what I see happening. Now, this morning I want to talk about something that is often not discussed because it's not necessarily a pleasant topic, and it may not even impact you listening, but it might just impact a son or daughter, a niece and nephew, stepchildren, people that you know, a friend, a coworker. And these are the big mistakes that can be made, that are made. And if you make a big mistake in your career, in your life, can you recover from it when it comes to your career? In other words, these are costly mistakes that impact your career, but can you overcome them? Now, let's talk about what are some of the big mistakes. And everything I share with you this morning is from firsthand work that I've done with clients over the years. So any one of these topics could be an hour discussion by themselves. But let's talk about mistakes. People that I've worked with, they've declared bankruptcy. I mean, official bankruptcy, and they're scared in terms of what to put down, how to go forward, especially in careers dealing in areas where bankruptcy could be a factor. But maybe you were fired, and I'm talking about fired with cause. In other words, you made a mistake. It could be a big mistake. Now, maybe to you it was a little mistake, but to the employer it was a big mistake, and they fired you. And you know what? You did not get unemployment support, and they're not going to give it to you. They haven't given it to you, but you were fired. That's happened with many of my clients who have approached me. What happens if you did jail time? And I'm not talking about a few days. Let's say length. What happens if you did prison time and you have felony record? And you've done your time. You're out of work. You're out of the system, the prison system. You're on probation. What do you do with your career at that point? What happens if it happened to you and you were in your first year of college? You had this path, but you made a mistake. What happens if you had substance abuse and you're out of recovery and it really kind of derailed your career big time? And now you think, you hope, you pray you're back on track. What do you do now? What happens if you're a healthcare worker and literally in healthcare, you get licensed, but you could also do something to make a mistake? What happens if you make a mistake and really derail your career in healthcare? So these are the types of mistakes that happen. And again, it might not be you, but it might be somebody very close to you. Again, it might be a son or a daughter. It might be a friend. But hopefully you'll stay with me this morning because I'm going to share with you some things, some actions that you can take, to kind of help get your career back on track. But let me frame my advice, and I'm going to give you two kind of ways to two contexts about this. And I've had two situations occur with me as a coach over the years. And here's kind of the first one. People approach me, and again, it could be a mom or dad about their son or daughter, and they say to me, "Hey, my daughter just got out of prison, made a huge mistake. She happened to be a senior at Harvard. Ed, she's a bartender now. She's on parole, and she wanted a marketing career. Can you help?" Somebody else might say, "Hi, Ed. I was just let go from a firm. I was there for 10 years. I made, just doing gangbusters, and I made a huge judgment error. It cost me my job, and I was fired last week. Should never have done that. Made a mistake. Can you help me?" So you have this context where some people will come to me as a coach and they're upfront. They just tell me, "Hey, full disclosure," right? Now here's a second scenario that happens, and it's in a different context. And it tends to happen with people who are older working professionals, at least with me. "Hey, Ed, need some coaching help. Hey, I just got, quote, downsized." And, a lot of people, 90% of the people who work with us, with me, and they're downsized. Okay, it happens all the time. But then what happens is about a third of the way through the coaching process, sometimes a little bit more, I'm sensing hesitation. I'm sensing something's just not feeling right. I see signs that, you're not all in. The person that I'm working with is not all in. And they're telling me one thing, but yet I don't see them doing some other things. Well, then finally it comes out. "Well, Ed, I was fired." Well, and then I'm like, wow, why did you not tell me that when we first met? And I get it. Sometimes it's embarrassing. But, as a coach, it's more of a wow factor because I would be coaching you differently right from the get-go if you were up front with me. Up front is so important if you're hiring a coach. Now, because I would coach you differently in terms of the interview. I would coach you differently in terms of job applications. I might coach you differently in terms of who to even go after in terms of a targeted job search. So a lot of it smoke and mirrors a bit by not being upfront. So that bothers me, but at least for many of my clients, it does finally come out, and then I'm like, let me just think through this. How do I kind of recover? But as a coach, you also have to worry, right? Well, if you as a client, you're not telling me everything now. What else are you not telling me? So it becomes highly problematic. But yeah, all of these things have happened with me as a coach with clients over the years. But, this morning I wanted to talk about, no matter what the issue is, what are some things you can do? And I'm going to go through what I would consider 7 tips for people that fall in these categories and my best advice, at least at a high level, because a lot of these discussions, as you can imagine, take hours. So here's the first tip. First tip is engage a coach who has a proven track record of helping those that have been in the same situation. So, hey, it's no different than, hey, you need to get your car repaired, and you happen to have a Jaguar, but you're going to go into, your local auto service person that you work with, and they've never touched the Jaguar. Well, would you do that? Probably not. You might want to go to somebody who specializes in Jaguar, or at least has a lot of experience in a Jaguar and fixing it. Just a vanilla kind of a blanket kind of approach on coaching, it just probably won't work when you're dealing with some really, really tough challenges. So that's one bit of advice. Go talk to somebody that has some experience in it. Do some reference checks, talk to some people. But I wouldn't recommend somebody getting out of prison going to, Googling career coach and, hey, here's a person, can you help me? Make sure they've had they've been through that trial. So here's the second one. And I've already alluded to it, but I'm going to hit it again because it's so important. Be open and honest upfront. So it's kind of, it's kind of tied to finding someone that has dealt with these challenges, but the upfront part is I want you to be 100% Boy Scout, Girl Scout honest. Not 90%, not 92.5%. I mean 100%. Hey, what happened? Why did it happen? And then you have a responsibility to tell that coach what you learned from it and why it's not going to happen again. Because coach is taking you on as a client is no different than anybody else at one level, and that they're not going to take you on if they think you're holding back. They're not going to take you on if, well, what I did was right, even though I went to jail. In other words, if there's an arrogance about you in terms of what you're trying to say, it may not work. It may not work out with some coaches, because I will tell you, if you kind of have that anger focus on this, there's a chance you're going to bring that same focus in terms of to interviews and potentially and it's going to be a harder road to go down. But full disclosure allows a coach to maybe craft a better plan early on. So that's something that, again, I can't stress more. Now, here's kind of point number 3, and this has happened to many people that I've worked with over the years that have fallen into these scenarios. Yep, somebody who made a healthcare decision and they're unable to get their license again. Devastating. 6-7 years of someone's life going down a path and making a mistake, and they're never going to get licensed. And as a result, they have to do a career pivot. Someone else, maybe they're going down the road to do something, and they did jail time, prison time. They may not be able to work with children any longer, or be licensed to do that. Somebody else may have been fired, and they might decide to stay in that same career field. Nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that I like to do, what I suggest you do when you go through some of these big challenges, do a career assessment. Do a detailed one. The ones that we do are 550 questions. There's a 2-hour consultation with a certified consultant. We look at personality, interest, skills, and values. And with all that data provided, including you being absolutely upfront with the mistake that's made, the goal is to try to hone in on 1-2 career areas that make the most sense. And again, the result of all this could mean you stay in the same career and job. Maybe it's a new career, a new job. Maybe it's something you decide to start on your own. Maybe it's an entrepreneurial slant that makes the most sense. But you're trying to weigh this new direction with the challenges at hand with the mistake that was made. So many times, if you're, had a bankruptcy, you becoming a financial advisor, as an example, could be a non-starter. That would be, an example. You have to be very, very upfront so that, as you're being coached through these assessments, you're then honing in on something that's practical, realistic, makes a lot of sense. And because if you don't do some homework, especially in the area of licensing for certain occupations, whether it be mental health, financial services, healthcare in general, if you don't do that homework, you could be applying for jobs, creating resumes, doing all this work, and it's a non-starter because no one's going to hire you because you'll never be able to get licensed. So a good career coach is going to help you with all those things, but this assessment work could kind of allow you to take a look at your life and what you want to do next in a broader way. And many times it might result in a pivot that could be your best next step to take. All right, so here's number 4. Number 4 is now craft a great resume. Sounds simple, but if you're making a career pivot, then everything's going to be focused on the transferable skills. And if you're not making a career pivot, let's say you want to stay, hey, I was fired, I made a mistake. Hey, that's okay. But let's get re-energized about all the good and the value that you brought to the table up into that time that you made a mistake. Look, I work with a lot of people. They work somewhere for 10 years, 15 years. And it's no different than being laid off, but when you get fired for a mistake, it's a little bit different. It rubs you the wrong way. Everything doesn't feel right. But nonetheless, those 10 years, it was all success. And just because you made a mistake does not throw out all the value, the hard work, the accomplishments, your value proposition up to that time that mistake was made. So use the opportunity when you're doing a resume with a career coach, a resume writer, to really call out and re-energize yourself in terms of all the good that you have brought to the table. And again, a mistake can always be made. Everybody makes them. I've made them. Yep, little ones, big ones, I've made them. But then you try to learn from them. And the more you can show a bit of you being humble based on that learning, I think even crafting a new resume will come out better. So that was number 4. So number 5, based on the mistake that was made, I alluded to it a little bit. I want you to be really smart in terms of the industry that you're targeting, the firms that you're targeting, and yes, even the hiring managers that you're going to target to engage in getting your career back on track. Look, I already mentioned, if you did prison time, applying, going after a job or going after, working at a youth center, knowing that you're going to be background checked may not make a whole lot of sense. That could be just, and you may still will love to do it, but it just may not make sense. It could be something that is not in the cards any longer. Many of the publicly held large firms, whether they be Fortune 500 and even private firms, privately held firms, they do background checks. And many times those background checks are done at the time of job offer. Every once in a while, you see firms actually doing background checks up front early, but many times it's at the tail end of the process. And you have to understand that if you did something, especially if it's jail time, prison time, it becomes a non-starter for a lot of these firms. They have a big program, big background check, and they have like a zero tolerance, and you don't get hired. And many of these firms aren't required to tell you why. It's just you go through the whole process, and it's kind of like you're almost wasting your time. And I know this firsthand because I know people have come to me that they've been looking for a job for 9 months, a year, and they're getting no responses on applications, A, number one, but B, every time an interview takes place, it ends, and then they never hear anything back because they're going about it in the wrong way. Now, I would also suggest when you start targeting industries, firms, right, hiring managers, it tends to work a bit better when you work with private firms, and I'm talking about people who have done jail time or prison time, or made a huge licensing a mistake. Private firms, smaller firms, it could be a good next step as a strategy. It's helped a lot of clients to date. Sometimes, even at the larger firms, they might, you might have a great interview, and that hiring manager could say, "Oh my goodness, yep, I understand," but it doesn't really matter what that hiring manager at these bigger firms say or don't say. The background checks are going to shoot you down at the end. So let's go to number 6. Number 6 sounds simple, but be honest in filling out the job application. If they say, have you declared bankruptcy? You have to say yes. Did you do jail time, prison time? You have to say yes. Full disclosure is a rule. Will speed things up for you in terms of getting your career on track. It won't slow it down. I always remember a person who got right to the job offer stage, and background check was run, and the job was basically they sent a note to the person, you're no longer a candidate for this role. Thank you, and we wish you well. That's after the job offer was issued and they did the background check. That person literally got arrested and did a couple days in jail for a mistake that they made when they were a junior in college, 15 years earlier in their career. They, quote, forgot to put it on the job application. And look, I've worked with companies. There's zero tolerance. I mean, zero. So my approach, my advice would be honest on job applications. Even some applications will say, will ask you, why did you leave your last company? And again, we get into some gray areas at times, but I would be inclined to say, if they're asking you outright, were you downsized or were you fired? I'd be more inclined to say, hey, I made a mistake. Because if it ever comes back to you that you were being dishonest in that answering that question, it usually doesn't end well. Almost 99% of the time, it doesn't end well. So let's hit on the number 7, and this is so darn important. And maybe I saved the best for last in terms of something to do. So when you interview and you really want that career, you want that job, and you have to kind of go after the job first and show your best front in terms of who you are based on the resume, based on how you prepare. Everything's focused on the job, the excitement, the opportunity. That doesn't change. That has to be the first thing. But before you close out that interview, I encourage you to say, but I want you to know I did make a mistake, especially when it comes to jail time, prison time, and then be prepared to explain why. And be prepared to tell the hiring manager or the person you're talking to, the lesson learned. I'm even a fan of creating a standalone one-page letter as a follow-up to a hiring manager. Do whatever you have to do to let people know in all sincerity that a mistake was made and it won't happen again. Because in the end, I'd rather see my clients, I'd rather see you do a hard stop so you're not wasting your time, their time, everyone's time going through an entire process that ends with no job offer. And I found over the years that that type of an approach tends to help people way more than not. So, leveling up with people, leading with your heart, not your smarts, showing that humility part of learning from a mistake, asking them to give you a shot at renewal, a new, encore career, maybe a reboot. But, it's a reboot not only on your career, but it's a reboot on your life. And there are many hiring managers out there, many people that would give you that opportunity, but they have to see the authenticity coming through. And that authenticity is based on, you being humble and you letting them know that, yeah, this is a challenge, but I want to move forward with my life. Will you give me that chance? This whole topic, there's so much to cover. I'm trying to hit on some highlights this morning. But all is never lost. You can restart a career, shift it, refocus, but you don't have to go do something and hate it for the next 20 years, 30 years of your life because of a mistake that you've made. But it takes some effort, takes some work. Full disclosures, I guess, is my overarching theme, and be smart about it. So we're just about out of time. For those new to the program, I did publish my first book at the end of 2019 called Optimize Your Resume, Do's and Don'ts the Sam Nova Way. In fact, yesterday somebody ordered 17 of them to give out as Christmas presents. So it was pretty cool. If you want to get my book, you can buy it from our secure website directly, www.samnovainc.com, samnovainc.com, and be more than happy to, and then just go to the drop down on resume book. This coming week, I'll be speaking 3 different places. This Tuesday, December 8th at 6 p.m., it'll be a talk to veterans, and about their careers and how to get back on track during COVID-19. It's also open to non-vets as well. Thursday the 10th at 10:30, I'll be speaking with my good friend Fazum Kamal on assessing your career at any age. That might lead to an encore career. And what does that encore career mean? And what does it look like? And then Friday, December 11th, I'll be speaking with the Lehigh Valley Network on how to work with third-party recruiters. That'll be, I believe it's going to be at 10 o'clock Friday morning. So to learn more about events that I'm speaking at, go to my website and you'll see at the top events. Click on it and you'll see what those events are. If you're not connected to me on LinkedIn, please do so. Just Google my name, Ed Samuel, Career Coach, LinkedIn, and I should come up on the first page of Google, either 1 or 2. And feel free to connect with me. I have close to 24,000 connections and would love to connect with you. Join me on my next Optimize Your Career program, Saturday, December 19th at 8 a.m. We will close the year out with a special guest on our Spotlight series, Shalom Klen, business consultant, author, Chicago radio host, and friend. Don't miss it. This is Ed Samuel, Career Coach with Sam Nova. Our main number is 610-274-8214. Have a blessed Saturday. And until next time, my very best.